Tucker Carlson has decided to ignore the overwhelming evidence indicating that white supremacists stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Was everyone involved a white supremacist? I don't know that for sure, but we certainly do know that the crowd consisted of quite a few white supremacists just based on what they were willing to say, what they were willing to wear, and the violence they were willing to engage in. And so there were racial slurs used toward black cops that were there. We have all this evidence to show you. But before we get to all of that, why don't we hear from Tucker Carlson, who is upset with the Attorney General nominee, Merrick Garland, because he promised to supervise the prosecution of white supremacists and others who stormed the Capitol. Take a look.
I supervised the prosecution of the perpetrators of the bombing of the Oklahoma City Federal Building, who sought to spark a revolution that would topple the federal government. If confirmed, I will supervise the prosecution of white supremacists and others who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, a heinous attack that sought to disrupt a cornerstone of our democracy, the peaceful transfer of power to a newly elected government.
That was Merrick Garland today at his confirmation hearings to be Joe Biden's next attorney general. Merrick Garland has a lot of reasonable friends who say he is a smart and moderate person, but that was not a moderate statement. It was dishonest, completely dishonest. Dishonest enough you should be worried about it. There's no evidence that white supremacists were responsible for what happened on January 6th. That's a lie. And contrary to what you've been hearing, there's also no evidence that this was a, quote, armed insurrection.
There's a lot of evidence that it was an armed insurrection, including the confiscation of weapons and pipe bombs that were found outside of the RNC and the DNC. There's other evidence though, but before I get to that, Ryan, I mean, is it even worth debunking his claims? I mean, it's beyond frustrating, and I don't know what to do anymore. I mean, he's gonna keep repeating these lies over and over again. Does it even make sense to debunk them?
It was kind of a dishonest reading of what Garland said. He said, and if Garland had said the storming of the Capitol by white supremacists, then you could have a conversation of whether or not calling everyone who stormed the Capitol a white supremacist is overly broad and is misunderstanding the nature of the conflict that happened on January 6th. That's not what Garland said. Tucker played what Garland said. Garland said white supremacists and others. Like he very consciously and specifically and explicitly added and others as an overly generous gesture toward the grievances of many of the people who stormed that Capitol. And so Carlson's response then is to pretend that he didn't say that, and to zero in on that. And then if you notice what Tucker did is he pretends in a way that Garland also made some other claims that Tucker is now going to debunk, but he doesn't actually say that Garland made those claims, because these are claims that he's just pulling out of other people who have made them, and then he goes on to argue with them. So he does this. I'm speaking truth to you. I'm being plain with you. But even with what he presents to the viewers, somebody who was discerning would be like, wait a minute, well that's not what Garland said. Garland said white supremacists and others stormed the Capitol. And like you said, there's plenty of evidence that, I think about this as an editor, very, very specifically, can you prove the precise words that were said? White supremacists, were there plural white supremacists? Yes, we know that there were. From the statements of the people who stormed the Capitol, we can say with certainty that at least plural white supremacists stormed the Capitol and others. Many people could reasonably go quite a long distance beyond that, but that's not even what Garland did.
I mean, and I apologize to anyone who's disturbed by this image, because it's disturbing to me. It's one of the reasons why I think about it all the time. But the image of the guy wearing the Auschwitz hoodie, Camp Auschwitz, and I think it says under that, work
will set you free.
Work will set you free. Sorry, my vision is not great, and I don't wear my glasses when I should be. But yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just absolutely
that's the phrase
disgusting.
That's the phrase that is over the entrance to Auschwitz. Work will set you free. Right. It's this famous saying of theirs. So there's one. For
I mean, there's one,
for the statement to be true, you need to find one more, and it's not going to be hard, and that's before you get into any of the other arguments that people would make about the Proud Boys and everything that the Proud Boys stand for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like Tucker Carlson, I guess, doesn't have enough to cling on to.
I mean, he knows. He has an interest in denying what's easy to prove. And I'm gonna go to one more video here because this is Officer Harry Dunn, who's with the Capitol Police. He's a 13-year veteran with the Capitol Police, and he was there that day as the riots were taking place, and he shared his experience with ABC News. Just take a listen to what he had to say about what he experienced.
This is when Officer Dunn encountered a couple in the crowd who began hurling the most vile of racial slurs at him, a black officer.
And his girlfriend, she had on a pink MAGA shirt. He said, hey, this voted for Joe Biden, guys. Hey, everybody, this voted for Joe Biden. They said, you.
So the crowd joined in.
Everybody joined in with him.
Real talk, when it registered to you what had been said to you, you're a law enforcement officer. You're in the Capitol defending the Capitol. And somehow race seeped into that too.
Everybody wants to say that it was about politics and everything, but it was a large number of people in that crowd that were racist.
And during the Senate hearings that are taking place in regard to the riots in the Capitol, Amy Klobuchar asked Capitol officials if white supremacists were present during the riots, and 100% yes was the answer. So again, there's overwhelming evidence. Tucker Carlson is, first of all, a white supremacist himself, based on the statements that he's made on his own show in the past regarding immigrants, regarding people of color, regarding Black Lives Matter. I mean, he's just the most horrendous statements. But he's also pandering to an audience that he has, has really brought on to himself as someone who pushes these disgusting white supremacist ideas. He serves as an apologist for some of the violence that we've seen around the country perpetrated by white supremacists, including the violence that was that took place in the Capitol. And it's not a news network. What he does is not news. What he does isn't even analytical, political commentary. What he does is he panders to the worst elements of our country, the worst elements of society, and he continues to justify the types of violent actions that we see across the country toward people of color. And it's just disgusting and deplorable.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.